The following conversation with Maestro Hamilton Souther is taken from one of the live calls in the Sacred Space, which is a platform for people who are seeking deeper meaning, practice, and community. We have 5 live calls every single week, and once a month, Maestro Hamilton joins us to do a guest lecture on plant medicines, and then at the end, members can ask questions. So we finish the recording before we do the questions, but I wanted to share this, one, for the value that Maestro Hamilton brings, and two, so you can get a little taste of the types of things that we're doing over in the Sacred Space. Now, if you would like to join that, there's going to be a link below where you can try it out for 14 days completely for free. So if that calls to you, the link will be there to come and try it out, where you'll get access to all of the calls that we do. Also in the link, you will see the different types of calls and the sessions that we have available with the different teachers on the platform. Now, before we get into this, the nature of this conversation is really around how do we discern what we experience in plant medicine ceremonies, and how do we then integrate that into our life so it offers more coherence and meaning and groundedness, and not the opposite. Now, why is Maestro Hamilton qualified to talk about this? Well, he was the first Westerner to be initiated as a master shaman within indigenous tribes in the Amazon jungle 23 years ago, and has since served ayahuasca to over 10,000 people, honoring the deep lineage traditions that he learnt in the jungle. He is the owner of Blue Morpho Retreats in Peru, and if you are interested in finding out more about Maestro Hamilton, there are going to be links for his Instagram and for Blue Morpho Retreats in the description. All right, I hope you enjoy this recording from our live teaching with Maestro Hamilton Souther. Welcome, Hamilton. So today we are recording a live session for the community, the Sacred Space, and we're going to double up also as a podcast episode. And it's been a little while since we've done a podcast together, and they've always been really well received. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Sabri. It's a pleasure, and I always like being here with you. So just looking forward to today.
Thanks, brother. So the session that I wanted to do today, the topic that I wanted to look at for the community inside the Sacred Space that I think would be really valuable is how do we discern what we experience in plant medicine journeys? What is quote unquote real, whatever that means, and what is a vision that we're receiving that we're actually meant to go further into to unpack the lessons? And then from there, how do we integrate that into our lived experience that offers more meaning and coherence in life, and that it doesn't actually lead to less coherence in life, which I'm sure you will have experienced maybe from people that I may have done before, lots of plant medicine that may have then arrived to you for some work with you, where you've kind of experienced that actually might be less coherence rather than more. So I guess that sets the table of where I'd like to go with today's conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I think all of those topics are key to the plant medicine experience. And, there's always concerns about navigation and how to best navigate. So I don't know, let's break it down. Where would you like to start?
Yeah, so first, let's start with what we actually experience. We can see so much in plant medicine ceremonies. And I guess my first question to you would be, how do we discern between when we experience, for example, someone may experience past lives, or they may experience a profound kind of message from what appears to be an entity or a spirit, or how do we actually discern what we're experiencing as an experience in that moment that's pointing to something versus the validity of its realness?
It's a great question, and it's not easy to answer. And so I would kind of like to look at a framework around, how to start to unpack this. Um, you typically hear when people start the experience that, they just kind of go into it, they have visions and they come out of it. We find out that there's just a lot more going on. And so I think the first place is we need to unpack, is this something that is happening inside you and you're creating it yourself? Is it something that's coming directly from the plant medicine and it's some kind of communication? Is it something that you're picking up on or attuning to that's in your environment? That could be just the nature if you're by yourself, or coming from others that are in the space with you. And the final possibility is that it really is coming from something that, is being transmitted to you or you're connecting with. And they all have different key qualities to them. And in our training courses, we train you to develop what we call your own system of communication, or your own language that starts to, through the experiences, make it easier to discern, where is that messaging coming from. You also have to look at the intentions that you set that are kind of co-informing upon your experience. If you're asking for healing, most people come to the plant medicine experience, they either ask for healing or they ask for some kind of exploration, learning, or personal development. So if you're asking for healing, you're going to go through a lot of processing that's psychological, and it's easy to relate to because most people relate to their mind more than anything else. Although what comes through during that time of healing can be greatly distorted. Right? So if it's inside you and it's inside your mind and it's part of healing, your mind could just be defragging, and you can have all sorts of wild thinking during that time. So for us during that time, we say, don't pay attention to any of it. Just don't pay attention to any of the process when your mind's being healed. If something important comes through that, it'll be there during that time, after that time, further down the road of that time, and it'll be like something that just doesn't go away. It's something that stays with you. Otherwise, you could have billions of thoughts during an extended plant medicine session, millions of thoughts, hundreds of thousands, that are just part of the healing process, which is, a neuroplastic event where the brain's rewiring itself and neurons are firing, and with that, all sorts of kind of mentalization and activities taking place. There's the, natures of visions where things come in with really big realizations, typically like this all concept. And people are like, oh, it's all love. Well, it's all love when you look at it through the lens of the heart and source and oneness. And maybe it's not all love when you look at it through another lens, right? Or everything makes sense through this lens. And when we look at those realizations, we think like those are kinds of awakenings people are having, very important awakenings, but they're not the end all to that exploration of your consciousness. So when those come through, to just sit with them and allow them to be, but not rewrite your entire understanding to try to pin your whole worldview just to that realization. You got to bring that realization in and let it sort of balance itself out with, all your other experiences you've had in your life. So, it's not, if I had a realization that everything is love, now I have to try to make everything in my life love. It's bring into my life this realization that everything is love, and learn how to stay centered from the heart and balance with the brain and still be discerning with your brain. Like when you decide to walk home after going out at night, maybe not everything on that street is love waiting for you. You still need to navigate society safely and be discerning. Like, let's bring some common sense into this. Like, we've got taught how to live. Yeah, through the lens of the heart, everything is love, but not every human is operating through the lens of the heart. So they have love inside them. They're just not activated on it. They're not thinking that way. And so we understand how to navigate these things. And then the same thing happens inside the ceremony itself. Like, once you get into a collective mind space, with others that are in the room, it's a very odd thing. When you're a student, go back in your imagination to grade school, and you're sitting there, 2 feet away are other kids sitting there too at desks. They're in their little thought bubbles. Imagine walking down the streets of London or walking down the streets of Manhattan where there are people on the streets. Everyone's in their little mind bubble. But when now you get together in a collective group and you take these mind expanding, substances, we call them plant medicines. You take these mind expanding plant medicines. Now you're in a shared thought field. You're in a shared mind field in that space. A lot of what comes through your vision may have nothing to do with you at all. And so that's where you want to learn how to communicate with a higher level guidance. And that could be the plant medicine itself. Like ayahuasca is considered a master teacher, as well as psilocybin, as well as San Pedro. If you're cannabis, if you're using these plants, you can ask the plant, like, is that mine? Is that right then, is that experience mine? You find it has nothing to do with you. It's just stuff in the space. They say to me, Maestro, after thousands of ceremonies sitting in these spaces, what do you see in there? I say a lot of repetitive thinking. Like, that is such a juicy story to somebody, but not if you've sat in that same story, hearing that thing over and over and over. There's no ego attachment to it. It's just a lot of thinking that's in that mind field. So then I look in that and I say, is there anything really of value there? Is there anything so impactful that it's going to create new guidance for your life? Is it going to support how you're going to move forward in your life? Or is it just another part of a healing process? And can we bring that awareness to this plant medicine space, that this incredible continuous neuroplasticity occurs if you microdose or if you go to regular ceremonies. You'll be going into neuroplastic events that last 3, 4, 5 days a week. You might be a week outside of neuroplasticity and you'll be right back into it. You're going to be in a nature of an evolving mind space. And so, that helps to understand, like, well, I'm evolving my mind. There's a lot of mind stuff that goes on that just needs to be allowed. Like they say in meditation, just allow the thoughts. Just allow them. Like, those are thoughts. Don't grab onto those and try to make sense of them. Those are thoughts. There's another part of discernment, which is about heart and about love and about a much deeper spiritual connection. And that's part of learning and a maturation process to just allow for it. There's discerning the lens of your thoughts. There's discerning the lens of your heart and your love and your deeper connections. And there's some stuff that we connect to through our mind, and there's some stuff that we connect through other parts of our bodies, like love through the heart and feeling through the rest of the abdomen. And those are also important tools for discernment. So you can ask the plant medicines to teach you how to be more heart-centered and how to be more feeling in your nature, not just processing mentally and just thinking, even though that's what we were originally taught. But in spiritual practices around the world, they teach you that you have to develop these other parts of you. So you have to develop the feeling parts of you, you have to develop the heart part of you. And Eastern philosophical studies show that in the column of light and energy that runs through you, that they call the chakras. It represents itself in the form of the rainbow. So there's a very well developed map for this. And you can just follow it, that you ask to develop that part of your body and it helps you become more discerning. And then the final part of that, which is this idea of other, this greater question of other that can happen in these ceremonies. And I was watching some reels and some videos yesterday where people are talking about DMT trips, and they say they've gone into this just other realm. It's got nothing to do with this one. It's filled with this other intelligence. It's filled with this other consciousness. It's filled with these beings and stuff. And, that is all part of a nature of discernment and interaction where you have to be really, really careful and really choosy. You have to be really discerning in your own right, sensing the vibration of those beings. Do you want to interact with them or not? If you don't, you send them away. If you ask the Amazonian shamans how to deal with them in ayahuasca ceremonies, which has a huge DMT component, they just say, blow at them. So it's not some big battle of fear and good over evil. It's just, no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't even know what that is. Or there's an opportunity to investigate it and talk with it, communicate with it. And just like you would anybody else when you're getting to know them, there's an introduction, and then there's a, starting to get to know that frequency and that energy and that kind of being, that kind of interaction, and starting to get comfortable with it. And you have to be very discerning. And once again, you can use the plant medicines that you're working with to be your guide. So some people say, I don't know how to do this. And I think it's strange because you took the knowledgeable teacher physically into your body, whether it's psilocybin or DMT or ayahuasca, you actually consumed it. So you learn to work with it. You learn to communicate with it like it is a guide for you. Now, sometimes people use the metaphor of like, oh, they're the river guide and they're taking you through the trip and they're, navigating it. You can think about it like the guide, direct TV guide, like just change the channel. Just like they're the guide, hey, arrow down, move channels, move out of those frequencies that you don't like. There's the ability to just ask them how. What do I do? At any moment, what do I do? That's another kind of guide where you bring up like, the helpful hints, the wizards that are there to help you out. So you can use the plants directly in this interaction with them and develop a relationship with them and start to, understand discernment. Now, early on, you're not going to have all of these skills. You're not going to know what to do. And this is where in traditional societies, there is a maestro médico vegetalista, or there's a master practitioner, facilitator, or shaman. They go by lots of different titles that is there to help initiate you, support you, and their capacity as a living human being is to intervene in your experience and share with you the qualities and capacities that you need in that moment to be able to stay safe and navigate those experiences. And so I think for people that are early on in this path, and they're starting to work with these things, I recommend that you find a master that you can work with that will ensure your well-being and safety through the experience. And we're also really huge advocates of getting education and training so that you can have a safe home practice, that you can understand how to use the plants with all of the tools that I've been talking about, and that you become an element of safety in these circles. Because I'm seeing a culture develop now where anywhere from 5 to 30 people, 50 people are showing up at events for this, and they're all relying on the trust of the practitioner there or the leader there to be, part of their safety. And I would prefer to see a world where half or more of everybody there knows all of the safety basics and can form a much greater and tight-knit container for all the new people coming into the space. And it's possible if people get the right education and training.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think what you said about, I felt like after I asked the question at the beginning, maybe I didn't quite word it right. And when you said, I said about real, but of course it's like there's a real experience at every level. And I think what you pointed to about, self and then other is a good clarifying way of viewing it. And, you know, one of the questions it's bringing up is, I think sometimes people can have these experiences that are so profound and um, can really make them see themselves in a new way based upon something they experience in a vision, in a journey. And it can perhaps be quite disruptive in a way that isn't adding more coherence to their life. I'll give you an example. Now, this wasn't disruptive for me because I think I have a reasonably, or maybe I'm being self-deceptive now, but I think I have a reasonably good take on being able to balance. Like that was a wild experience, and then I'm just like it felt really real. I don't know how real it is. I don't know how valid it is, but that felt really real. So like, about 8 years ago on one of my journeys, I was taken into all of these past lives in such vivid detail. And it told me that every life before I was a woman. And this is the first life that I've been a man. And it showed me all these various lives, like in first person and third person, almost like the ghost of Christmas past, like going back. And it just felt so real. And when that finished and I came around, I was like, was that really the case? And I guess I could hold it as, I don't know. I don't know, but I can imagine some people might be so in that where they now start to really change their perception of who they are in this life, like where it really kind of affects their sense of identity, where maybe they start now relaying everything back to this idea of who they think they were in past lives. And maybe it could be quite disruptive in the life that they live now, as an example. So that's something that's coming up. So I just thought I'd hand that to you to speak on something that people might experience in that way.
I love that. And, it makes me think about an approach to how to address that kind of an experience. And one thing that I'm seeing right now, which is, profound in the psychedelic space, but also just in the social media space, is that people are very quick to sell and receive ideologies, which are just new beliefs. Like someone says, oh, this is how it is. And someone else believes that's how it is. And someone says, oh, this is the new detox. Is it really the new detox? And someone goes, this is the new supplement. Is it really the new supplement? And someone goes, these are all your past lives. Well, are they really your past lives? We're talking about discernment here, which is such a great concept. And this is an opportunity to get really discerning. And so what this opens up for me is the entire belief sphere around past lives. And it makes me question, are there really past lives at all? Or is there another phenomena going on? Is there a whole understanding of past lives that might have applied to some but not apply to others the same way? Is there a journey that's taking place that's showing you something about you and asking you to ask deeper questions? There's an opportunity to have that journey over and over and over and over again. It opens up the idea like, wow, how did I open into that realm of past lives? Can I use intention and sit down with half a gram or a gram of psilocybin and enter into past lives again? Do I get the same past lives? If I do 100 past lives journey, do I get the same past lives? Is it only my past lives and like my ego identified bubble, or is there a greater shared tapestry of life here behind us? We don't know these things. We get told stories. Some of them come from our ancestors, all the deep Eastern philosophical studies where all of this came from ultimately is part of our ancestry as a great human species. Where did these ideas come from? Why? What are the visions that are associated with them are all great questions to ask. I think that outside of the medicines being incredible experiences and healers, which has now been talked about millions of times, I think it's also a rich opportunity for exploration. And we call it investigation. You have to investigate it. You have to go deeper into it. You can't just take it at face value and just accept it that one journey is now definitive of everything about you and about your life. On the contrary, it's just the start. It's just the first little, like if it were a song that you like, it was the first beat is all you got from that journey. They give you the very first beat and it looks like it's the whole thing, but it's not. It's just the tiniest bit. How does it relate to our understandings of science? Like you're talking about the past lives. How far back does the past go? If you're not only right now, what past do you come from? Where's your first origin point? Where's the very first seed of Sabri in this universe? And is that the same seed as Jacqueline? Is that the same seed as somebody else? Is that the same seed as me? Do we all share the same seed, or does it come from all different times? And if it did, how could that be? How could one person have one past life, and how could another person have 100,000 past lives? So many people come to me and they in their past life, it's like a trauma. They're what I call like the douches of our of our ancestry. They all have like the worst people are their past lives. And I think like you can't even give that guy a rest. Like what is he, a fractal? Did he like was like murderous like a couple 100,000 like I don't know 20,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and now in just the last 50 years of history I've met like 100 people that's their past life. And I think to myself, wait, how is that even possible? I've had at least 20 people tell me in their past life they see that they were Hitler. How is that possible? That guy just died like 80 years ago and he's already reincarnated, 20 times. Like, what's going on here with this story? Maybe that could happen. And why would the universe then seed that guy 20 more times or 100 more? What's going on in our psychology and the nature of how we're exploring past lives? Like, this is what happens when you get into this. You start teasing it out in investigation, and it opens up 100,000, a million questions more to go into. And that's what we actually call the journey. It's not just, oh, I got a call and response, a definitive answer. It's that I got more clues to go deeper into something that leads to more journeys, that gives me more clues. And if you see that past life comes up over and over and over and over and over again, it'll naturally start influencing you more. You'll start to develop more awareness and identity with that. Could you imagine what it would be like if every single time you went to the mirror, it was a new life? How would, every time you go to the mirror, like you go to the bathroom how many times a day, and you would see the mirror and it would be a new life every time, right? So my point is, it's the continuity over time is what gives you the awareness of that life and the nature of that importance. And I'm seeing people who are smart and intelligent go into these experiences and they get a little vision of an experience and then immediately grasp onto that as if that's core factual reality, right? That's it. That's the truth. And I think like, wait a second here. That's the beginning of a great exploration to learn more about this. And they say, like, why do the shamans participate in this over and over and over again? Isn't it enough to get the visions once? And they found out, no, it wasn't enough. Your visionary experience changes 100 ceremonies in, 500 ceremonies in, 1,000 ceremonies in, 20 years in, 40 years in, 60 years in. It changes over time. And you keep learning more about these phenomena and getting to explore more about it. And so I would be very careful about this buying ideology, including self-sold ideologies and new beliefs simply from a visionary experience. There are some things that are really consistent in these experiences that are very informing and very well mapped. Like the people that meet psilocybin know it, and they can talk about this beingness or intelligence they found from all-consuming psilocybin. And no different than if everybody knows Susie down the street and they're like, Susie? Oh yeah, Susie. Oh, I know Susie more. Oh, I'm best friends with Susie. The other one's like, no, I just met Susie once. But everyone agrees that's Susie. They're not like, no, that's Jenny, that's Rebecca, that's Susie. Like, that's well mapped, right? Everybody knows that. Everyone who drinks ayahuasca comes away going like, oh yeah, I met ayahuasca for sure. Like, hello, ayahuasca. Like, really nice to meet you. Some of us develop a very long-term relationship with ayahuasca. Other people, it's a one and done thing. But everyone comes away saying they met ayahuasca, right? And so I think there are some things in this very, very well mapped, and some things are being freshly explored for everybody. Give it your opportunity, get into it, find out more. Don't just take it at face value. Get into those past lives and how they affect you. I like to ask the question, especially in and around discernment, what's the value of this information to me? About every vision. What's the value of this to me? Like, I don't just watch TV, I watch Netflix, I like shows, I like, videos and entertaining things. And I'm sitting there and I'm not taking that in and believing that. That's fantasy, right? I let it be that. I'm not sitting there thinking that fictional story about the last kingdom of something where, these people are riding around on horses wearing metal is really the way it was. I don't think that's a factual depiction. I'm looking at that, I'm letting it be fantasy. So how much of these visionary experiences do we have are informed by our cartoon upbringing, by our, interaction in a machine world where everything that is around you has been architected or, or made by humans, right? Like if you look at your environment like that, everything is informed by that. You get into these visionary experiences and you see realms that are informed by that. you know, Take it with a grain of salt. Keep exploring. Keep exploring more about you. Ask big questions. Wait for the real answers. Explore the answers that you get. Develop relationship with the plants. And if you see things that, you know, don't have merit or purpose for you, discard them. Be discerning about your interpretation of those things. If they don't, just let them go. And if they do, let them sit for a long time. Like a lot of people come to ayahuasca and they get told big decisions they need to make, huge decisions in their life. And I said to him, well, if it really is that big of a decision and it really is the right decision, it'll be right a week from now and a month from now and 2 months from now and a year from now, because it's a life-changing thing. Right? So give it as much time as you need to ensure that you really are convinced about that. And, it helps you be discerning. And I think we can then start to better navigate the nature of this space.
Beautiful. There's something on that I want to double click on, but before I do, a couple of things that you said. One of the things you said about Hitler, 20 people being Hitler. And I wonder when I hear that, like, how much of that might be experiencing an archetype of that which might be repressed, in one's shadow. So, for example, maybe the archetype of evil for them might be Hitler. And then this side of, oh, I was Hitler in a past life. Maybe what it's showing is this is actually in your psyche. This actually exists within. This is something to look at. And the reason I say that is one time when I'd done DMT, I started to see this just this monster, and I was like, oh God, I'm not looking at that. And then in me, I was like, oh no, I know I need to. It's like, what is it? Like, like I'm looking away. I'm like, I'll have a little look. and and then I just heard, this is in you.
Mm.
And then I was shown this completely white angelic being, and it said, and so is this.
Mm.
And then the question was, and what do you want to pay attention to? What do you want to allow to come into the world?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, like, how often we can have something that is shown to us as a visual, as a representation of pointing to something deeper, like you just said, to explore, to go into, like, oh, what's the deeper meaning of this? Just like reading the Bible, you know, certain information is only accessible to us upon going transformation. So two people can read the same text, and unless someone's gone through the requisite transformation, they actually won't be able to see the depth that's there. It actually won't be revealed to them. So I just wonder how many of these things that get shown to us is something much deeper that wants to be revealed, that actually requires that deepening in over time, actual transformation, where it then reveals more, where we can actually keep revisiting what we went through in that journey, where it's not just the journey's come to an end and it's done, but actually more can be revealed if we were to keep revisiting it through that lens of discernment.
It would be revealed more. There's the stuff in your conscious mind, subconscious and unconscious. There's what's in your spirit and what's in your consciousness. All of it at the same time. If you keep going back into that and revealing more, you're going to learn exactly how you were both infused with life and spirit and thought and mind, and also the kinds of mythologies that you were taught that you don't even realize are part of the fabric of your interface with the world and reality around you. And so if you get an opportunity to keep going into it, you're going to learn more and more and more. There's no end to it. All that you can do is ultimately get to things that are truly factual. And when they are, they hold in time. So it just is that way, 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 is that, it's a fact. It just doesn't change. It just is that way. You know, and then the others all evolve. Everything else is evolving as you're learning more about them, more about the information that's available there, more about your own path of self-discovery. A lot of people externalize all this stuff they see, right? You internalized that stuff. You said it was inside you. I was just on a retreat, and a new person to plant medicine was really interested in and around the energies of God, including the energies that aren't the most pleasant ones. You know, like what are parasitic energies, and what are these, you know, these things we see in biology that come out that are part of the great life force that aren't really good for us, you know, and some of them are actually disease producing and stuff. But this person had a theory that all of that's being created by God or was created by God. So what is all of this stuff? And we went into ayahuasca, and typically there are these visions where you just see multitudes of eyes, just eyes, eyes. Lots of people have had that vision of just eyes, these neon, all multicolored eyes. And for her in that experience, it was kind of evil, right? It wasn't like beautiful, kind eyes, sweet eyes, loving, maternal eyes. It was weird, these strange eyes, right? And then she had the awareness as well to say, but I wouldn't have had that experience if that weren't inside me. Right? A lot of people say, oh no, that's outside me. That has nothing to do with me. Right? You're inside the DMT experience, and you say, well, that's inside me. That opens up an incredible exploration and of discernment, how to get there. How do you even have an inside to have something inside you? How do you have a voluminous space to have something inside you? How are you multidimensional to have something inside you? How do you have angels and demons inside you? How did the universe get angels and demons inside them? Right? What's their relationship? How did those archetypal shapes come into being? How can a person think an archetype is a past life? How is there confusion there? Right? How could that possibly? How can an archetype ultimately be embodied by an ancestor as if the ancestor were the archetype and not a complex series and matrix of archetypes? But these are all questions to start to actually get into and to see, one, for discernment in and around yourself, two, for me, for the curiosity around it. I find it to be fascinating. These are the questions that I find most interesting to try to explore when we start to go deep inside of us and we start pulling the thread and we realize that something's creating the thread faster than we can pull it. Like there's this interplay. It's not, oh, like a quart of milk and I'm going to study what's inside it. I'm going to get done with my pint and it's over. It seems like when we get into this, that the more we get into it, the more there is. And then the more we get into that, the more there is. And the more we get into that, the more there is. And it never seems to be less. And it's an interesting phenomena with the universe too, because we have, you know, these incredible telescopes now, and they keep pointing them to the darkest part of space to try to find nothing, and they find more there than they knew about the other stuff. Like, what's going on here? And what is this? Like, it's not a hall of mirrors. What is this place we're in that's called the universe, where every place we look, there's more? You go deep into the super nano, and there's more. And then you go deep into the cosmos, and there's more. And you can take those lenses, you can take those views really easily inside these explorations. You start getting into your psyche and into time, and there's more. Like, you start deconstructing your psyche in the plant medicine experience, and you go all the way back to single cell. You can track that all the way back to where you're both sperm and egg at the same time. You're meeting yourself, you're honing. You can go back to when you're in your dad's testicles. You can go back to while you're also in your mom's fallopian tube at the same time, and be in vision, honing you, coming together and becoming your body in that moment. right? There, where do you begin and they end in that moment? Like we say it's this birth moment, but you can go into these visions and start to really see this epic evolution taking place that is you. Where did you get your first thought? Where did you get your first heartbeat? When did you have your first brain to have a first thought? You can go through that gestation process and be in vision with it. You can be omnipresent, third person present in it itself, developing the nature of the I am. You can be spirit in it, you can be soul in it, all at the same time. And it's informing you. And then you see there's more there. Right there, when that's happening, there's a whole earth already happening. The earth has all been happening for at least 5 billion years, right there as this bridge to the rest of this cosmic consciousness that we're part of, this earth-based system that's been evolving to allow us to exist at all. If you take any pathway at any time, and at any time you can go any place real in that vision, it's going to just take you to more. The only thing we have to discern there is facts from illusion, right? Beliefs that are supporting us as we learn more truth. It's not just one thing or another. We've built these maps to try to describe it, but you're tapping into the great phenomena of this universe. And I find it to be the most fascinating exploration there is.
Incredible. So a lot of people think not let them think. I think some people can interpret the spiritual experience as being something that is moving away from the human experience. People will often talk about there's the human experience and there's the spiritual experience. However, the original definition of spiritual meant to be concerned with the human spirit, not the material. So there's this, I feel like there's been this dichotomized thing between the spiritual and the human, as though the human isn't deeply implicated in the spiritual. And I'm just thinking about people that have these peak experiences through visionary plants, where it feels like it takes them out of themselves. But actually, it's like, well, what if it's actually taking you further in to yourself? And maybe it's both simultaneously, kind of how like the brain works both top down and bottom up in its processing. Like maybe it's doing both and we can hold both. And so I asked this question because I'm just wondering for people that might start to fall into this path of feeling like they want to escape the human experience to have a spiritual experience, how do we, this is what I meant about grounding it. So how do we kind of use visionary plants where the idea of spiritual doesn't take them away from being human, but actually makes them way more human, but in the depth of the human spirit and experience?
It's a great direction of exploration. You know, our ancestors, and you can connect with them in vision, so it's not abstract, right? Our ancestors had spiritual beliefs as far back as we have archaeological record. What we think of as the modern human mind that thinks this is the human experience and there's some other kind of spiritual experience has only come into existence in the last hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years. So most of our ancestry lived in a state of consciousness where this was more spiritual than not spiritual. And not spiritual showed up only recently in history. If we have that view and understand the idea of what a view is, it's not a reality matrix. You're not telling somebody how it is. You're taking a position in how it actually is that no one even has an answer for the mystery of yet. We just call it life or we call it the universe, and sure, just normalize that. I don't think there's anything normal about it. If you look at the real story, I think we're miraculous. So like, what's so normal about that? They take a view and they go, this isn't spiritual. I want a spiritual experience. Right? That's a view that they're taking. Take this other view. The only way you could have that view is by using your spirit to create it. So the only way you can create a non-spiritual view is the spirit that you already are, that you are already being in this moment. And I look for bridges to try to make sense of that. And so one is energy. People say to me, Maestro, do you believe in energy? And I say, well, I'm looking at you and you're an electron cloud. That's pretty energy if you ask me. Like, I got electrons, I'm paying for them in my light socket right there, and you're a cloud of them. And then I ask, how many of those are you right now? Can you count them? Can you tell me how many electrons you are? If you try, you're going to use electrons in your brain to do it. Like, yeah, that's the energy. What is that? Call it spirit, call it energy, call it whatever you want. Where did it come from? There's still no answer. You go back in time, they go Big Bang, or they say God created it. God created it, or that's the best we have. I go, yeah, there's flaws with both of those concepts. The flaw, it's a very simple flaw. It's like, how? Just ask the question, how? Like, how Big Bang? Like just how? Okay, I'm good for it. Sure, Big Bang. How? Why? Why at all? Why no? It'd be easier to think no Big Bang than Big Bang. But it's all normalized in our mythology. Oh yeah, sure, Big Bang. But when I got to the forest, I realized these guys that I was with out in the forest, out in the Amazon, they didn't have the same definition of spirit. So if I said spirit, I was meaning one thing. If they said spirit, they were meaning another thing. That was a huge, huge thing for me because I had been raised in, ghost stories and the idea that there's a monster under your bed, and then these like weird Hollywood movies where a spirit is this thing that is like amorphic or you can kind of see through it and it haunts the forest and stuff like that. That's not what they were talking about at all. They were like, the spirit of the forest is its life force. Like simple math. Add up all the energy that's there, that's alive and decomposing and alive, that's its spirit. And I thought to myself, holy cow, the only way I can make sense of that myself is that's physics for me. That's biochem, that's physics. And I went, uh-oh, uh-oh, big uh-oh, oh. These guys have a view informed by ayahuasca that they're describing in a mythological spiritual term, but it means for us concrete science, hard science, like the hardest science, only because they take that view, they can do completely other stuff with it. They can wield it, connect with it, move it, use it to heal, use it to support you, use it to guide you. We just look at it and try to figure out other ways of working with it, synthesize it, extract from it, extract molecules from it. And then I went, well, wait a second, their tea is chemistry. It's a simple solution. They figured out how to take these plants, extract the mechanisms for it, like wine is chemistry. And it turns out that nature gives the grape everything it needs to turn itself into wine. Well, it turns out that for making ayahuasca and extracting the alkaloids that come from the ayahuasca vine and from the chacruna leaf, you need to have a certain acidity in the water that happens to be the natural acidity of the rivers. And the rivers are naturally acidic because the rain filters through the forest. It goes through the about meter depth of leaves that are decomposing. That is tea, just tea of all the entire forest. Right? So the water becomes a tea that's in the rivers of the entire forest. They take that water, it happens to have the perfect acidity to be able to extract the alkaloids from ayahuasca and from chacruna, yet the water is a tea of the entire forest that you're drinking. It's not just two plants. The water has already been infused with the, quote, spirit of the entire forest. Right? And you drink that when you actually make ayahuasca tea. What a thing, right? So they're talking, what is the spirit thing? Julio taught me. Julio is one of my great elder teachers. Julio taught me to never, ever think of a thing that's out in the world in that term. He said that's objectifying. Think of it as a being. not an animated being, not a Japanese animist cartoon. Just think of it as a being. That's a tree being. That's a like the galaxy, he would call a being. He would call it a celestial being. He goes, that's a galaxy. It's being. He doesn't mean being human. He did not anthropomorphize it. It just means existing thing, existing being. Relate to it as a being. Relate to the tree as a being. Relate to the bird as a being. Right? And what I found out from doing that is that if you relate, and that's now you taking the view, right? If you relate to that thing as a being, you have a different experience of that thing than if you treat that thing as an object. Now let's think about each other. Let's think about each other. When people come and objectify you and they treat you like an object, how does that make you feel and resonate when you're made of energy? You know it. There's a whole culture. There's a whole male-female culture where people are saying, don't objectify me. Hi, I'm real. Up here. Look at me here. Talk to me here. Don't objectify me. I'm alive. I'm a being. And I went, wow, this is the same concept. And when you treat someone as a being and you come to them as a being, you get a different response from them. Well, I found out if you go to either in vision or just out in nature and you treat those things as beings, you get a completely different interaction. And that's part of starting the exploration of spirit. You can take psilocybin and go, oh, you're just a drug. You're a party drug. I'm going to take you. That's like objectifying it. There are these other people that sit down with the psilocybin and they start talking with it. They start sharing their heart. They start sharing their intention. In the West, they call it intentional practice. Ask them the difference. Ask them the difference in experience, or try it yourself. Okay. I did an experiment with a couple of people, and they worked in hospitals. And I said, well, when you go home, why don't you just do this with the medications post-surgery that people get, like opioids and morphines, and just speak to them like beings and just tell them to be the most effective medicine they could be. So just think of that. A nurse is going to now give the opioid shot, the morphine, and just goes, just be a more effective medicine, please. And doctors started to come in and reduce the amount of morphine people needed, and they didn't know why. They came back to me and said, you won't believe this. They're reducing the morphine needs by 25, 30%. The people are saying they just don't need anymore because they're not in pain. And all that person did was treat that substance, that liquid that they were going to give people in hospital as a more effective medicine. I would love to see a widespread study on that could, give more provability to that. This is starting to, take us into this realm of spirit. Then you get into these visions inside, larger psilocybin doses and ayahuasca experiences, and people say they meet very consistent, light shapes, these beingnesses. Well, it turns out that those are enculturated and well known in the Amazonian traditions. They all have names. They've all been classified, just like scientists classified the plants, and you know the difference between a sunflower and a rose, and you don't confuse them. They don't confuse this group of doctors from this group of doctors, this group of supporters from these protectors from those. It's all classified. It's all been hierarchically known, and it's in all the lineages. They know how to call them. They have similar ikros for them. That's a language to communicate with them. And it's all been, very well charted and mapped territories by our ancestors. So what are those? I don't care what word we give them. I don't care. When you have 1 million people that says, I just saw that, that's real. I don't care what it is. That's a real phenomena. You either tell me how the 1 million people all saw it, what's going on with them to see it, or you tell me how that thing exists. Right? And so at first I didn't believe any of this. I thought, oh, it's easy to discount all of this. You can just say that you were like pre-suggested. Somewhere you were shown a mythological shape for this, or some archetype that you were shown by someone else, And I remember with the first shaman down here I was working with, I kept seeing this thing floating around in the space, and I had never seen anything like it. And the only place I had a reference for it was in ayahuasca. I did not see it anywhere else. There was no artwork for this thing, and it was very distinct and very repetitive. And one day the shaman comes up to me after about a month of seeing this thing, and he unveils his medicine pipe, and in his medicine pipe, carved right into it, is the exact shape. And it was the first time I ever saw something first in vision that was then afterwards corroborated in some kind of physical effigy. And I went, big, like I was an anthropologist, big, big moment of we are way, way outside my field of study. We have to go deep into this. Now, I don't care what we call these phenomena. It's irrelevant to me. Give it any syllable you want. What I like to do with this one is I like to go back to our very first ancestor that had no word for any of this, but had a phenomena and is going to create a word to try to describe the phenomena to someone else. And to me, that's the origin of the word spirit. There's just people living there. They're people. They've never, ever had the word spirit. Earth has never said the word spirit. No human has ever used the word spirit or any other language to mean it. But there's a phenomena, and then all of a sudden, someone says it to try to communicate with somebody else this phenomena. It's the phenomena I'm interested in. I feel the same way for the universe. I feel the same way for God. You could give it any syllable you want. It wouldn't change the fact that one of our ancestors was like, and gave a syllable to this thing in them that they had to say that was so obvious to them that they needed a word. And that's the emergence of our language. Some things in our language are, really easy to understand. Like, some things not so easy to understand. It took us a long time to understand atoms. Everyone now goes around and believes in atoms, but they've never seen an atom. They just see things made of atoms. But since we were all taught in school atoms, we were like, oh yeah, sure, atoms. So these things are hard to describe over time. Give it time to understand it. Do that test of interacting with the medicines in a very specific way, and you'll have a different response. Call it what you want. Our ancestors called that spirit.
There's so many ways I feel like we could go with this, but I'm aware of time. So maybe just around this session out, um, for anyone watching the replay or watching on YouTube, listening on the podcast, what advice would you give to someone who has been using or used visionary plant medicines to finally a practice that maybe can enter into after to ground it, to offer more coherence and meaning in their lived experience?
The whole purpose of these plants for us is to make our lives better. So the very first thing I want people to think about is that they're giving you an opportunity. They're not fixing you. Like, they can solve in the ceremonies very specific, simple things. Like, you have some brain chemistry imbalance and now you don't. Your heart was out of coherence with your brain. Now it's not. You had some trauma that was unprocessed. Now you don't. But they don't live for you. They just don't live for you. Like, you live for you. So now how are you going to live? And that's the opportunity they give you. They give you this neuroplastic event where you get to change your neuronet. We run based on our neuronets in Western society. It's how you navigate. So you get an opportunity to use intention and your own heart and love and the support of the plants to be able to make very specific changes to you during that period of time. I hear a lot of people, it's really simple. They are, weekly, daily drinkers in an alcohol-based culture, and then they drink the plant medicines and they go home and they're just not anymore. It's really simple, right? Well, how much does that change your mind? How much does that inform upon your neuronet? Just that simple change. And then with that, what happens after that? And then they tell me, say, it's really amazing. I just didn't even want to drink anymore. Not like it was a problem or anything. They're just like, I had no desire for it. And then I found myself exercising more, and I found myself going out and having even better interactions and conversations with friends. My kids and I are relating better. And, I'm clearer in my mind and I wake up feeling better in the morning. Right? Just like one simple little change. And my point in highlighting that is that's what I mean by an opportunity. Now, some of these opportunities require us to give a little more to them, right? We need to actually do something with it. And so I think that's where the nature of practice comes into experience. And the practice that I like to share with people is practices around awareness, because the plant medicines open up your awareness. Everything we were talking about goes from basically being closed-minded in a bubble to seeing more than that and trying to figure out what's going on, right? So there are lots of little simple practices that if you do, say just like 10, maybe 15 1-minute practices throughout a day. So we're talking about taking 60 seconds in an hour to an hour and a half of time as you're doing stuff. You can completely change your entire day and change exactly how you relate to yourself and your work with the plant medicines. So the first one is, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Right? What's the very first thing you do? Make sure that's positive. Make sure whatever the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is positive for you. Well, now you've seeded your whole day with positivity. The next thing, do something that makes you aware of the coherence with your brain and your heart. Think of 5 things you love. It's easy for me. My dog shows up. That's one. Boom. Dog, love. It's so easy. If you have kids and you love them, boom, it's on. Like, just 5 things you love. How long does it take you to connect with 5 things you love? I love cacao in the morning. I make a cacao. I got dog cacao. It's so easy, right? I like to walk around and stretch a little bit. It feels good. Now I got 3, right? So that's like just a mental training. That's now heart presence, right? I like to become aware of the bigger picture. I find daily life to be monotonous. I don't know about others. Maybe some others crack out on daily life and just think that all that monotony is just like the most wholesome thing ever. I don't really feel that way. So I like to try to keep a larger cosmic vision. I just remind myself, hey, there's purpose to all of us. Just that little reminder. So I don't get lost in task. Yeah, I'm going to do a million tasks, but there's purpose. There's purpose to us. I don't care what the purpose is. I just want there to be purpose. Right? So just a quick reminder, there's purpose. When you take a shower, it's an opportunity to ground and balance. If you bathe or shower, everyone's going to bathe or shower today. Use it as an opportunity to ground and balance. You're in water, conducting electricity. Electrons are pouring over you as you're soaping up, and it's an intimate time with your body. Like, use that purposefully. You're going to take the 5 minutes anyway. In there, take 2 breaths minimum of just doing nothing, just feeling. Right? That's going to change your whole perception, because now you're receptive. Instead of thinking, oh my God, what do I have to do? I have to shower fast to get out to go do. Take 2 breaths. Connect with the breath, connect with the water, connect with earth and ground. Right? When you have any kind of food, just be grateful. You're nourishing yourself. It's so easy. Just be grateful in that moment. Anything you get to consume or eat. During the day, give yourself a treat. Something you like, something that's a treat. Enjoy it. Enjoy a treat in the day. For me, it's the cacao in the morning. It's beautiful. It's nourishing, it's balancing, and it's a treat, and it's a plant medicine. So I get to work with it every day. Right? As you go through your day, make sure as you start to feel stressed, anytime you start to feel stressed, take 10 seconds and ground. And the simplest grounding technique I've found is to feel the weight of your body. Because when you're feeling ungrounded, you're spinning in thoughts. And so I just trained myself to feel the weight of my body. Yep, there I am. That's my ground. I feel the floor and I take a big deep breath. It creates heart coherence. If you start to feel more stressed than that, you have to find time to relax. Develop a relaxation practice. Some people use breath. Some people use meditation. Some people use a massage. Some people pet their cats or dogs or whatever. Like there's really simple. Some people walk around for 30 seconds barefoot, just feeling their feet. This is, again, a 1 minute practice. This is not a longer practice, right? If you need, when you get really stressed, a longer period of relaxation to re-regulate your nervous system, right? And when you go to bed, reinforce your intentions. They used to call it prayer, but it's really just your deep intentions. So let that truth from your heart express itself. Right? Now, people don't process their shadows. So before you go to bed, let it just be what it really is. If you're filled with nasty, express it, but give it a direction. Like, let's purge that while we sleep. And then let dream time be the time when you re-regulate your nervous system, when you process your psychology, when you go into REM and you have dreams. Like, use that time wisely. You don't have to do anything. You just set the intention and then you go to sleep. Right? We learn to train in dream time, they call it, because you use intention. And so you just communicate. You're working with the plant medicines and you're integrating them and you're grounding with them. And so you just talk to them and you say, well, these are my intentions, and it can be exactly what it is. What I loved about the plant medicines is they just wanted honesty. So you get this opportunity to just be honest with them. And look at that. The whole thing took 10 to 15 minutes and you changed your whole day. And you integrated everything in real time. And by a week, 2 weeks, a month from them, you'll be ready for your next exploration.
Yeah, it really sounds like with the intentionality someone goes into a ceremony with, it's almost extending that intentionality just into the lived experience of a given day.
Forever.
Yeah. So then that could be continuous, that same intention of entering into a ceremony. Well, life's a ceremony. So let's create the intention repeatedly.
Exactly right. Yeah, and be thoughtful about your own development.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, brother. This was great.
Awesome, Sabri. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us and watching or listening to this episode of the Lost and Found podcast, taken from our live call with Maestro Hamilton in the Sacred Space. Once again, if you want to try out the Sacred Space for 14 days for free, use the link below and you can join calls like this one with Maestro Hamilton and with myself, Dr. Tom Goddard, and a whole host of wonderful facilitators inside a community that is really seeking deep connection, exploration, and meaning in life. And lastly, the links to find Maestro Hamilton and Blue Morpho retreats will also be in the description. Thank you once again for being here and watching this episode.